Hi everybody, Adrian Plass here yet again.
Yes, and Bridget, hello.
And I think this is the 28th time we've done this, which is exactly 4 weeks.
That
that
is
we've been doing
extraordinary, really,
it.
isn't it?
It's extraordinary. We mentioned the rise in numbers of deaths, sadly, a huge number of deaths now. And we've been a little heartened, as I expect you have, by the numbers this very recently coming down.
Yeah.
Whether that will be maintained or not, of course, we don't know.
No.
But we'll wait and see.
But they're tiny, tiny, tiny little seedlings of green shoots, aren't
That's
they?
right,
So
yeah.
we have to hang on to these things, I think, at the moment. We were also delighted to hear about some of the drinks that some of you think you are. What an unusual bunch you are. We heard from somebody who said that he thought that he was Horlicks. Now, for some of you who won't know what on earth that is, it's a sort of malty drink that you're encouraged to drink
It's
at
sweet.
bedtime.
I can't really
Yeah,
remember.
it's quite sweet.
Sweet,
But
yeah.
he said he felt that it was a warm and comforting drink, and that's what he hopes that he is. I hate to tell you, I don't actually like Horlicks, but the vast majority of people do, so that's all right.
I was described as somebody as being fruity. I mean,
Right.
I've been called many things in my life. I don't think I have ever actually been described as
Would you rather
fruity.
be called Horlicks?
I think I'd rather be fruity than Horlicks, for reasons that I won't go into just yet.
No, we heard from somebody who obviously doesn't have a very high opinion of themselves as a drink. Didn't think he was very refreshing, but did think he was good for people if sipped in small sips. And he equated himself a health drink, something that's good for you, but rather like taking a sip of a cough suppressant or mushroom tea. Is mushroom tea a thing?
Well, obviously it is. Not a thing I've ever heard
No,
of, but I think
no.
we may be going a little far with these at the moment. I don't know.
Well, there was a nice one from somebody who said that she thought her daughter was tea because she was very helpful and loved sorting people's problems out, and that she herself was a pink gin tonic. Pink because that's her favourite
nice,
colour,
yeah.
and the gin and tonic bit because she's quite bubbly. And then we heard from a whole family. Now, apparently, the son and daughter-in-law are obviously quite adorable because they're sweet Prosecco. That's very nice,
Oh,
isn't it?
yes,
The
yeah.
other son, he reckoned, was a citrus beer, cool, but a bit fruity. But then it got a bit, I'm not quite sure what, because he described his wife as being grapefruit, very good for you, but on occasions maybe a little bit sharp. And then she said she thought he was a pint of Old Peculiar,
Ah.
which
Just
is...
for those who don't know, Old Peculiar is a very, very nice English bitter beer, if you like English bitter beer.
I'm not sure if that's what she was meaning. I
No,
think she
just
may have
peculiar, I
been
think.
focusing on the Old Peculiar. But that same person, Adrian, referred to you
Yeah.
as being like a good quality wine that matures with age. Do you think that describes you, Adrian?
Yes, I do. I think I'm very mature. I do have a history, as my family would tell you, of doing very stupid things. And we were remembering one this week when we lived down south. I used to balance things on my head, and don't judge me. I enjoyed balancing things like coffee tables, so that people would come in and I'd wait to see what they said when they suddenly noticed I had a table on my head. One day I went for gold. In the kitchen I put a very large china plate on my head, and I put a half bottle of wine with the cork out, and balanced that in the middle of the plate, and I sat on a stool motionlessly waiting for Bridget excuse me, to come back in so that she could be amazed at what I was doing. Well, she was a bit held up, and I suddenly realised out of the corner of my eye that there was a man watching me through the window of the kitchen, and I thought, I've got a plate and a bottle of wine balanced on my head, and I turned with infinitesimal speed towards him, and for a moment our eyes met, and in that eternal moment he clearly thought I was mad, and I thought, there is nothing I can ever say that will come near to explaining why I am doing this. then he snapped back into action, went and measured things, which is what he was there for, and I took the plate off my head. And when we did meet, we never mentioned it again.
Never mentioned,
Nope,
was it?
never mentioned it again.
Well, of course, yesterday we were talking about how Jesus said he would love us to be more like children, and we were talking about the slight difference between being childlike and being childish, and I'm not at all sure which category that experience fits into, Adrian.
I don't
Not
think
really.
it fits into any category.
No. We're very aware, though, partly through the news, partly through things we're hearing from you, that as adults there is an awful lot to struggle with at the moment, whether you're struggling with the worst of bereavement or illness, or whether you're struggling with having more family at home or no family at home, being alone or inundated with children needing things. Some of the problems that were there before the lockdown, they just get worse, they get bigger, they get slightly more difficult to control. And we was very aware from some of the things that you've been saying and things we've been thinking, is that in that situation we so want to be good Christians, whatever that means. We want to be it.
Well, there was one email in particular that I found really helpful for myself, because the lady who sent it to me was talking about problems that they had, and she wanted to somehow find a solution to it. And it made me laugh, because at one point she said, "I've tried surrendering and whatnot." I do so appreciate that. And I thought about that, and I thought, this is the problem, that what you end up with is saying, what will work?
Yeah.
You know, if I'm a Christian, if I surrender, will that work?
Yes.
If I confess my sins, will that work? If I go and away for a day and stay on my own, will that work?
Yeah.
Well, the answer actually is that nothing works. Prayer doesn't work. Surrendering doesn't. None of these things work. And I'll tell you why they don't work. Because that's not how God operates. I've spent my lifetime trying to, and I think at last arriving at a point where I feel a real fondness for God. I understand him less than I ever have done, but I know that I cannot use him like a slot machine. I know that I cannot force results. And I know that's frustrating, but I think the bottom line for me is that God is a vulnerable, powerful, warm, mysterious presence.
Yeah.
And it says in Matthew 6, that it doesn't say, when you pray, go into your room, take a selection of whatnots with you,
No, it doesn't.
and give them to God. It says, go and speak to your Father, who will reward you for what is done in secret.
Yeah.
And the reward, the nature of the reward, is entirely up to him.
Yeah.
We pray, we surrender, we do all those things, but we know that in the end, it's not us who decide how things will be sorted out, or if they'll be sorted out, or when. And the amount of trust involved in that is really quite high.
Yeah.
And we try to build that up. But so
it's tough, though, isn't it?
It's
it is
very
tough
tough,
because
yeah,
there are all these different kind of options in the Bible, and people land on one or other in different generations. They've landed on one or other, whether it's that you beat yourself up with a rope, or it's that you, I don't know, you go silent or you shout. We were in Australia once, weren't we, where there was a denomination there that shouted at God very early in the morning, and that was what they did, and that was their way of going
this
about
is really
things.
weird. And we were woken early in the morning by what seemed to be a
riot.
terrible fight
Absolutely.
going on in the building near us, and it was just them praising God.
Yeah.
They go into action as though you've pressed a button.
Yes, as though you've pressed a button, and there's a lot of buttons that people have tried to press, aren't there?
I remember doing it with my legs when I was younger because I had sciatica, and people may laugh at this, but we were in a culture, sort of evangelical culture, where this list of the whatnots I
That's
was talking
right.
about are constantly placed before you.
Yes.
So, I mean, I thought my leg's hurting. I'll ask God if he'll heal it. And then, someone said, well, God will give you what you need. He'll never give you a stone when you need a fish. So I'd go and say, Lord, I just want what is right and proper for me. And he didn't heal my leg. And then I'd do what that lady said. I'd surrender everything. And my leg didn't get healed. And then I'd confess all my sins and all that stuff. So in the end, I realised what I've already tried to say, that you can't slot machine yourself into recovery. But sometimes, and we know this, people are healed.
Absolutely, by doing one of those things.
But how, when, who, that's the mystery we have to live with.
Yeah. There's one of those phrases that, again, we trot out or we hear, especially sometimes when we first become Christians, that, our burdens are heavy, but his burdens will be light. Well, one of the problems is, I think, that our burdens get jolly heavy. When we were first married, do you remember, Adrian? Of course you remember. We went hitchhiking on our honeymoon. We really, really, people say they haven't got any money. We really didn't have any money. We were working with kids in care and we didn't have a house, so we didn't want stuff for a house. But what we thought was, we'll go camping because that would be brilliant, and we could ask people for camping equipment for our wedding presents. So we did. We asked for a tent, and we asked for sleeping bags, and we asked for a rucksack and various other things. But we didn't want my parents to know that we were planning to go hitchhiking for our honeymoon, because that would not have gone down very well. So we didn't actually stipulate anything to do with that equipment. And as a result, I honestly think we were given, if you remember, Adrian, the heaviest tent ever created.
Yes, it was a very heavy tent.
And the sort of sleeping bags that once you've taken them out of their neat little bag, just unfurl and unfurl and unfurl and never, ever, ever go back into their bag. And terrible rucksacks. Anyway, we hitchhiked down to Cornwall and we walked a lot and hitchhiked a bit. And actually we did have a wonderful time. But one of the things I remember so well is that those rucksacks were incredibly heavy, which meant that when we got to a hill, and we got to quite a few hills, first of all, getting the rucksack on first thing in the morning meant first I leant right back. Adrian would hitch this awful thing onto my back, and then I'd sort of bound my back forward so that I was at a right angle leaning forward to get the thing onto my back and then gradually straighten up. I know there'll be some of you with memories of these sort of rucksacks. But the point was that it was so heavy that I could only see about 2 feet in front of me. And then when we came to a hill, Adrian being very gallant and us having only just got married, and I'm sure he'd still do it.
Still trying to impress you in those days.
No, I don't think it was as simple. I think you were really kind. First of all, he went up the hill, left his rucksack up there, came back and took mine. And I was able to see. I looked around. I looked at the beautiful views in Cornwall. And I thought, there's an awful lot of chucking out of our rucksacks, our spiritual rucksacks we need to do. And a lot of those are whatnots. They're the shoulds. They're the how-tos. They're the neat solutions. So that actually we can look around us and possibly see some things that God would like us to be looking at, not burdened by all this stuff. So maybe we just need to hold on to him, maybe. Just remember those words about being under the shadow of his wing and stay safe. And
this is a very difficult thing to talk about, isn't it? Because we believe in God.
And in healing.
We believe in all those things. But we have come to know that we know nothing. And that we have to learn to trust him. It's difficult.
And that God is a bespoke God.
He is a
one
bespoke
thing that
God,
will be right for one person and one solution. And then some things we never will understand.
It's hard.
It is.
One thing that has helped me over the years, and I don't know if it'll help you, but I remember seeing a picture of the golfer. You wouldn't know, would you?
No.
Jasper Parnevich. I think he was Swedish, and he did really well. And there was a picture in the newspaper of Jasper Parnevich, and he'd won a tournament. And he was standing there with his 2 beautiful little Scandinavian-looking little girls on his arms. They were sitting there with him as he had his picture taken. And he had won. And I remember looking at that picture and looking into the eyes of these beautiful little girls, and there were two things I saw there. One was that they were safe because they were with their daddy, and he'd won. He'd won. And the other thing in their eyes was that they knew exactly as much as they needed to know at that time to have everything that they could possibly need.
Yeah. So maybe that's what Jesus meant by saying, be a child.
Maybe so. We know that's not easy, and some people would have to reverse a bit to go there. But that to be aware that Jesus has won.
Yeah.
He's done it.
Yeah.
We can't understand that, but he's done it.
Yeah.
And that what we know about him, the mystery, and the things that have happened to us, and we've had some wonderful things happen to us, we can rest. We can, theoretically anyway, rest comfortably and wait for what happens next.
Yeah.
That won't mean everything goes fine.
No.
All right.
No.
But that's the possibility for us.
Yeah.
And just to think about that might do something to take the sting out of some of the situations that people are having to go through.
Yeah. What nots maybe should you chuck out of your rucksack if they're making you feel burdened in the wrong way? Well, we heard from somebody, just to finish, who was thinking about the things we talked about, how lovely it would have in heaven, and she said she would like to be able to do cartwheels when she gets to heaven because she's never been very good at them. So there you are. What would you like to be able to do in heaven that you're really not very good at the moment but would love to finally conquer?
I'd like to make a cake.
Well, you can do that this afternoon, darling.
Okay. Well, it's been lovely to be with you as always, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.